Inside a timber factory, a worker attempts to lift a log, unknowingly stepping closer than advisable to a spinning veneer lathe. Never ever wear loose or baggy clothing near moving equipment, and avoid turning your back on an active spindle. At a hardware store loading zone, a worker triggers an unexpected reaction while cutting the bands on a compressed metal coil resting on a pickup truck. Never, ever stand in the expansion zone or on an elevated surface while cutting the retaining bands of coiled materials. Rolls of wire behave like large compressed springs. Once the tension is released, the material can expand outward with enough movement to disrupt your balance, turning a simple task into an avoidable mishap. In a busy shopping mall, a worker attempts to guide a massive train of shopping carts down an escalator. Within seconds, the heavy stack becomes impossible to manage safely. Never ever transport a long chain of carts down an escalator or moving ramp. These machines are designed for passenger flow, not heavy freight. The steep angle makes it nearly impossible to control the momentum of a weighted stack. And once gravity takes over, handling the movement becomes unmanageable. The only safe and proper way to move large volumes of carts between floors is via a freight elevator. You must avoid the escalator entirely for bulk transport because attempting to balance a heavy wheeled load on a moving incline introduces unnecessary and unpredictable motion that puts everyone nearby at risk. On a construction site, a crane lifts a pallet of heavy masonry blocks while workers stand directly in the danger area beneath it. Suddenly, the pallet structure gives way mid-air. Never walk or stand under a suspended load. Rigging, pallets, and shrink wrap can fail without warning. Gravity is always working against them, and being underneath puts you in an unsafe position with zero protection. Always set up a clearly marked exclusion zone around lifting operations. Control the load's rotation from a safe distance using long tag lines instead of placing your hands on the cargo. Treat every lift as if something could fail. Even if the crane straps hold, the pallet or packaging might not. Keep your eyes up, stay alert, and keep your body completely clear of the hazard area. Deep inside a storage depot, workers stand in the shadow of a towering stack of heavy sacks. Suddenly, the unstable wall of inventory shifts downward unexpectedly. Never ever pull bags from the bottom or middle of a stack to create an overhang or cave. Sacks rely on friction and interlocking balance to stay upright. Removing the lower foundation turns a stable pile into one that can lose structure and spill outward. You must always destack inventory layer by layer from the top down, maintaining a safe, stable slope. In a busy concrete plant, a speeding cement mixer moves through the yard, unaware that a worker is walking directly into the active lane. Never ever exceed speed limits in a yard or step into a traffic lane without looking. Increased speed reduces reaction time. When a heavy truck moves too fast, the driver may not be able to slow down promptly in response to hazards noticed too late, creating an unsafe situation. Yard safety is a shared responsibility that demands full attention from both drivers and pedestrians. Drivers must slow down to maintain control, and pedestrians must stop and scan before crossing. Under the hood of an SUV, a mechanic attempts to jump the starter directly from the engine bay, believing he is in control. But the situation changes the moment the engine is energized. Never, ever attempt to start a vehicle from under the hood by bridging the starter solenoid unless you have personally verified the transmission is in neutral. When you bypass the ignition key, you also bypass the safety neutral switch. If the vehicle is in gear, the starter motor can cause the vehicle to shift position the moment power is applied. Always double-check the gear selector and engage the parking brake before opening the hood. If you must crank an engine from the outside, stand to the side of the fender, never in front, because a vehicle moving unexpectedly does not provide time for safe repositioning. Pulling a top-heavy manual pallet stacker through a murky puddle, a worker strikes a concealed pothole that abruptly stops the small wheels. Never ever operate a manual pallet stacker on uneven surfaces, gravel, or through standing water. These machines are designed strictly for smooth, level concrete. Their small casters cannot accommodate debris or holes. When the base encounters a hidden obstruction, the momentum of the elevated load can cause the mass to tilt. And by pulling the stacker toward himself, the worker positioned his body where he had limited space to move out of the way if the equipment shifted. Always push a stacker so it moves away from you if it encounters a flaw in the ground. In a paved loading yard, a forklift operator maneuvers a bulky crate, but a sudden shift in balance causes the machine to lean unexpectedly. Never ever travel with a heavy load elevated or break suddenly while carrying cargo. A forklift's stability depends entirely on keeping the center of gravity low and back. If the load shifts forward or momentum pushes it outward, the counterweight cannot stabilize the motion, and the machine may begin to tilt. Keep your forks low, just inches off the ground, and ensure the load is pushed fully back against the carriage. You must drive smoothly because sudden or jerky movements with a heavy load can disrupt the machine's balance. Deep inside a truck trailer, a forklift operator reverses, expecting solid ground beneath the wheels. But a critical miscommunication allows the truck to move prematurely. Never ever drive into a trailer unless the truck is physically restrained and the engine is off. An unsecured rig is an unsafe condition. If a driver mistakenly assumes loading is finished and releases the brakes, there is suddenly no stable platform beneath you, leaving no time to adjust. Reliable safety requires more than trust. It requires physical security like wheel chocks and automatic dock locks to hold the truck firmly in place. You must take control of the situation by holding the driver's keys yourself, because a verbal warning alone is rarely enough to prevent a premature departure that could create significant hazards. Standing inside a truck bed during a loading operation, a worker places himself in the risk zone of a massive steel frame. A slight shift suddenly alters the load's alignment. Never, ever position yourself between a suspended load and a fixed object like a truck rail or wall. This creates a tight gap with limited space to adjust. Suspended loads are dynamic and may move unpredictably, even with small crane adjustments. You must guide heavy loads using taglines from a safe distance, never with your hands. Stay out of the truck bed entirely until the load is grounded and stable. A garbage truck unloads at a transfer station, but as the bed rises, the front wheels lift slightly, and the whole rig begins to lean toward the edge. Raising the bed of a dump truck creates a higher center of gravity. If the load is sticky or uneven, or if the truck is on an unstable surface, the elevated center of gravity can shift beyond the rear axle, increasing the likelihood of a tilt. Always dump on level, stable ground. If a load does not release smoothly, lower the bed and reposition the truck before attempting again. Never attempt to free a stuck load by rapidly moving the vehicle or overextending the lift, because the imbalance can cause the truck to lean in an unsafe direction. To keep learning from these important workplace safety lessons, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Stay aware, stay safe.